Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 307 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Cristi. Cristi is Johnny, Reggie, and Miah's mom. Now, certainly Cristi's story is one of great tragedy, but it is also one of great resilience and strength that I know you will really appreciate. I also have another podcast sponsorship to announce. So this episode is sponsored in honor of Alexander by his mother, Marcia. Marcia lost Alexander in March of 2023, and she says she's just learning how to breathe again. She is sponsoring this week's episode in honor of Alexander's 42nd birthday that would have been just a couple of weeks ago. She's not ready to share the story, but really wanted to sponsor an episode. So thank you, Marcia, for sponsoring an episode. Again, if you would like to sponsor an episode, you can make a one-time donation of $125 or a monthly donation of $10. You can do that through GiveButter, which is available by going to the website andysmom.com. Also, if you want to share your story on the podcast, please feel free to email me at Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, at andysmom.com. I have one additional announcement that next week we are having another live stream with Gwen. That live stream will be on Monday, August 4th at 7 o'clock p.m. And that is going to be on the fact that we are living in two realities. So we're living with the hope of heaven and the mess of earth, longing for the old while hoping for the new. Over the next few days, please follow on social media as we'll ask some questions, and you can feel free to answer on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll discuss those. I think we're going to be able to do a real live stream again. So the benefit of these sponsorships is I'm feeling like I may be able to afford the StreamYard that I used to have before, that we could do those live streams on a lot more easily. So I'm going to re-implement that. And thank you again for all of our sponsors. So we are being able to, do some of the things that we want to do. So thank you so much. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Cristi, Johnny, Reggie, and Miah's mom. Thank you so much for coming on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate talking to you today, Cristi. You have a long story to go through, so I think we'll just get right to it, if that sounds okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about just your history? Because I think there's a lot to build up to get to your story.
Yeah. I have always been a caregiver, a giver. I adopted 5 children, 2 biological children, a husband that had the same mindset, teacher and football coach, and just really believed that you make all the right decisions in life and in your relationships, that God will bless you, the universe will bless you, like there'll be positive things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the tragedy started a year after adopting 5 children, almost all at the same time. It was 2 that we knew. One was a member of our church that ended up in a shelter. One was a student of my husband's at the local high school. And we adopted them, and we thought, oh, we can do this. This is our calling. My husband is a teacher and football coach, doctorate in special education. I'm a doctor in healthcare education, psychiatric nurse practitioner. We're like, this is what we're called to do. Just so super excited about life. So we adopted those 2. Then we went through the foster to adopt system, and we thought we were going to adopt one more. Ended up with a 3-child sibling group that came with some trauma. So that was a different kind of got enmeshed in the story. But we really I really had this confidence that we were doing the right things and that, we were going to be blessed. And then my son, Johnny, died in a drowning accident.
Yeah.
And, I did what most mothers do is just, well, I've got 6 more kids. Like it's about them. Like I don't have time or energy and I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner and I don't even know how do you grieve like that? This whole 5 stages of grief, like,
Yeah.
that's a joke. And that's a whole another conversation that really was, developed for people going through hospice. But I had no idea. And I'm a caregiver and I'm a type A personality. Like, we're going to fix this. We're going to be okay. And so I just put my all into raising my kids. So at this time, my 2 biological children are the youngest. They were 4 and 5. And then the adopted children were all the way up to 18 years old, spread out. And yeah, you just pour yourself into your kids and you're like, I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to be okay.
Well, and you had talked about how Johnny's sisters had gone through quite a bit of trauma.
Yeah.
Right? They had all gone through trauma. So now this.
Yeah.
On top of it.
I say this in the book and, I promised them that they were now safe.
Yeah.
They had been physically and sexually abused in the foster care system. And I naively believe that you can just take someone who has been with that kind of childhood trauma and just love on them and it will fill all their wounds. And then, Johnny dies under my watch. And
I totally can relate. So we have a foster son that we didn't adopt, but honestly, I mean, he's my son. He's been with us for 9 years. And we took him in. He needed a kidney transplant. He had been abused in his home in Guatemala. He came here. We gave him his home, right? He was bounced around. He was started in Oklahoma and then was in Texas and then was in Florida and then was in Illinois and then with us and all that in 2 years. And he came to us and he got his kidney and we were his family. And we, I felt like we loved him in a way that he hadn't been before. And then Andy died. So it's just like, you feel like so related to that part of your story because that literally happened. Like, and I felt so like you, like when we went through the process, we felt really like God called us to take him in. And, they were searching nationwide for a family to take in this 17-year-old Guatemalan kid who needed a kidney. And we felt like we're his family. I'm a pediatrician. My husband's an anesthesiologist. My kids all spoke Spanish because they went to Spanish immersion. And the director of the transplant program is from Colombia and spoke Spanish. I mean, this was the place for him. And so then you really feel kind of almost betrayed by God. Like,
Ooh.
I did all of this. I answered every call. Every time you said, do it, I did it. And then this happens? Really? And like, this was a healthy kid. I mean, I was prepared. I thought that we could have lost Valeriano, right? I mean, coming in, he had the transplant, he had all this stuff. And it was a big, subject of prayer for my husband and I. Like, we're going to take this kid in. We have 3 kids, 14, 12, and 10. If he dies, what's this going to do to them? But yet, he's not the one who died. Right. So anyway, I just wanted to say how much I relate to you.
Yeah, you really hit a button
in that. And that's why I think I was so drawn in to the story because I feel like there were a lot of parallels with kind of how you were feeling and how I was feeling.
Yeah. Betrayed by God is definitely something I wrestle with.
Yeah.
Trusting God.
I mean, I feel like I'm in a much better place now, for sure. And I think you even said this in your book. I feel like my relationship with God now is much more authentic than it was. I mean, as I kept reading your book, which we hadn't even talked about yet, to all of you, spoiler alert, there's a book. If you're watching the video, there's a little copy behind you. But I feel like it is more authentic now and more real now. And as I was reading it, I was thinking like, oh, you were kind of in that prosperity gospel. Like, if I do all of this, I will prosper.
Right.
If I believe in the gospel, I will prosper. And that's just not how life is. Life is not prosperity gospel. God doesn't promise that we will not, undergo trials. Although a lot of people like to think that he does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say that publicly sometimes because, it scares people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? The prosperity gospel feels protective.
Yes.
It feels like if I just, do these things, I will be spared. But the journey, I wouldn't take it back. And so, yeah, I continue to lose children and have losses and I wouldn't take it back. And I said that in a YouTube video recently, and I had a mother just tear me apart of how dare you say you could be grateful for your children's death, and like I'm this horrible mother, which of course is an internal button that's easily pushed.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the journey has been hard.
Yeah. Other people just can't understand. You're not saying you are happy that your children died. You take them back, right? If you could, you take all of it back, but you can't. And since you can't, then you want to make some good come of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about Johnny. Let's move on though, because at the time when Johnny died, all of your children seemed like they were healthy. You were this big, huge, obviously family with 7 kids, but you did not obviously foresee any of this coming. So then what happened?
Yeah. And back to that thing of like, if I knew that my children would have a rare neurodegenerative condition, I wouldn't have adopted children.
No.
Right. If you knew that you were going to lose Andy, you would probably have not taken in somebody else's trauma.
No, we probably wouldn't have. And I would regret that. I'm so glad that we did because I love him. He's getting married in a week and a half. He's going to make me a grandma in the wintertime. So, this is something I don't regret, but you are 100% right. If God had said you only have, 3 more years with Andy, we wouldn't, because I gave so much to him. We had a summer. I spent the whole summer in the hospital. I didn't spend it with Andy and my other kids. I didn't. Yeah. And looking back, I know I would have said, no, I need to treasure them more. I need to be with them more. And I wouldn't have given what I gave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I would have, which would have been a huge loss for me.
Again, for me, I now have 7 grandkids and I wouldn't have any grandkids ever. Like my family would be over had I not adopted. So God allowed us to take on all of this before knowing, obviously, because it wouldn't have been smart, right? Like,
Yeah.
So in 2016, Reggie had his first grand mal seizure and I'm a nurse. I know what's going on. We're calling 911. But I didn't know the magnitude. I was like, okay, epilepsy is a real thing. People get treated. I've always been, like Viktor Frankl would say, tragically optimistic. Like throughout this whole process, I was like, okay, seizures, we can handle seizures. Okay, developmental delay, we can handle that. Like every diagnosis or everything that would happen with my son, Reggie, we can handle it. We can handle it. And then I remember when we found out the diagnosis of DRPLA. And I sent my husband to the appointment, which in our family, he's the teacher, I'm the nurse. So I go to all the medical appointments. He doesn't handle any of that stuff. But I was tragically optimistic that this was just going to be, we didn't find anything genetically wrong.
Yeah.
And so then my husband calls me. I can't even understand what he's saying. He's like, the doctor's going to have to explain it. She's saying dentropapillonian atrophy. I'm a nurse. I don't even know what that is. Don't know how to spell it. I have her spell it for me and I'm typing it in. And I say this in the documentary that the first thing I saw was autosomal dominant, which most people wouldn't know what that is, but that means that me or my husband have it and that my child is 50% like my other biological child has a 50% chance of having it. And it just crushed. Like I literally was on the floor crying in my office at work. Like I can't believe that this is happening.
Yeah.
But you get it together. Okay, we have a diagnosis. And you start researching, and we again thought my daughter was perfectly healthy.
How old were the kids at the time?
Reggie was 9, which Miah was 8.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing competitive gymnastics. She was, doing fine in school, no evidence of any kind of problems. And when I started researching what the symptoms of DRPLA were while we were waiting for the test results, I was pretty sure it was going to be my husband, because there was subtle signs of like just, lack of coordination, some memory issues. And so I kind of had the idea that it was him, but I was for sure that my daughter was going to be negative. I thought, I'm going to get her tested so that I can get it out of my mind.
Yeah.
And not be constantly worried about it. And then she comes back positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, this tragic optimism. I'm like, well, she's going to be like her dad and, be an adult and still not have, really have symptoms, right? She had less repeats. It's a repeat disorder, but not that much less. My husband had 62. My daughter had 68. My son had 72. And what this disorder does is it causes brain death in like the cerebellum, which is, close to where you learn to breathe and things like that, right? Like, so Reggie is diagnosed with this. I'm a fighter. We're doing everything from, I've traveled the world. I've traveled to Japan, to Europe, to Canada to see the best neurologists in the world, the best different alternative medicine, hyperbaric medicine, neurology, homeopathy, Ayurvedic medicine. Like I would just find the best in the world and I would fly him there. And I'm like, if I've got to go to the best because, this is obviously very difficult to treat. And there's no medical treatment, no possible medical treatment for this disorder, including moving to Colorado where there was kids that their seizures were being stopped by a strain of cannabis. And so we moved to Colorado to try that. Wasn't really that effective.
Because he was having a lot of seizures by this point in time, right?
He was very sick. His presentation was so dramatic. Every seizure felt life-threatening. He would have clusters of seizures of 12 in the same day. It's 12 grand mas where you're going without breathing and nothing worked. Like no medicine worked, nothing. Everything from the ketogenic diet to VNS to deep brain stimulation. So he's had multiple neurosurgeries to try to stop the seizures. Nothing. Like I went through 10 years of medical trauma. Like right. We were constantly, and all of this time, Miah is calm. She did have her first seizure when she was 12, but she started on medicine and the medicine worked. Like the presentation was completely different. Reggie had more seizures in a day than Miah had in her whole life.
Really?
Yeah, it was night and day. And so, like, again, all of my attention is on the sick child, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're just, all of your attention is on the sick child. And to give myself credit, we did a lot of beautiful things with the family. We did, Make-A-Wish things. We've done, all kinds of cruises and vacations and swimming with the dolphins. And we just made sure that our kids had joy in their life. Mm-hmm. But, it was all focused on Reggie and the trauma. And when he passed away in 2016, as hard as it was, I would not pray for him back because he was uncomfortable. He was in pain. He was confined to a wheelchair. He was eating, he wasn't eating anymore. It was G-tube fed. Like it was, you wouldn't wish him back.
Yeah.
I was like trying to grieve, but again, like pouring myself into Miah. At this time, Miah was developmentally delayed. So I would say, she was 7. She probably stopped developing around 15 years old. And so as she was getting older, she was still kind of like a preteen, young teenager. maybe even a little, maybe more like 13, but healthy. Like she would have a seizure and we would adjust her medicine and then she wouldn't have a seizure again for 6 months to a year, right? Like the typical controlled epilepsy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just a beautiful soul. This girl loved everyone. She went to college like in a special program. She wasn't doing the college level work, but she was like participating in college activities and just a beautiful soul, special, but healthy. Never spent the night in the hospital, never was in the ICU, never felt like she might die. And then she died in her sleep. So there's something called sudden unexpected death in epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this thing that, like SUDEP, like we don't know why.
Yeah.
There was a camera in her room. There was no evidence of a seizure. She had her CPAP on. She was very comfortable, looked very comfortable, did not look like a tragic night. And that was the hardest. God ripping out my soul. Like I was just kept believing positive that this would have a happy ending, that they would find some treatment. And honestly, I was recently triggered because there is some interthecal ASO genetic treatment that's happening for DRPLA right now.
Wow.
And so that's pretty triggering. I mean, I hope they are successful and that people can get treated for DRPLA. It's just too late for my family.
Mm. Well, and you mentioned this before we started recording, but this is exceedingly rare, this disorder, right?
Yeah.
Because you said there's a registry.
There's an international registry, and there's only 68 people in the registry.
Right.
And it's been open for about 6 or 7 years. So, it's not like it's a new registry. So for me, in my story, I can't help but blame God.
Right.
Like, I can't blame the doctors. I can't blame me. Like, it's like, and so it really, so it's the spiritual journey part. So in the Mentally Strong method, I talk about spiritual conflict, and I've been talking about spiritual conflict for a while. Like, God is love, but I don't feel loved, right? That's a conflict that I need to be able to work out. And so, I'm trying to work these things out. And when Reggie died, like I said, I wouldn't have prayed for him back. Like, so the spiritual struggle was different. And I remember very distinctly crying out to God after Reggie passed. And I said, and I felt Reggie speak to me. And he said, "Mama, you think you're so smart. You have no idea." And just talking about kind of the vastness of eternity, I kind of pushed it aside.
Mm-hmm.
Like doctrinally, I come from a pretty conservative Christian church that would say you can't speak to the dead, that you can only speak to God through Jesus, and so I had and so I was scared of that. I took it as a morsel of a gift, but I wouldn't explore it. When Miah passed, the pain is it's like starting over. Like, this is my third child.
Yeah.
And all of my biological children. Like, God, if you're real, you have to show me that in a real intimate way. I can't just read this Bible or listen to this sermon and believe what they say. Like, it has to come directly from you. And that started this more authentic relationship and I know that my daughter Miah is with me all the time. Like, she has told me a couple things, and one of them is that Reggie's purpose was to get you to a place, both physically and spiritually, and mine is to stay with you. She's with me always. But yeah, so the third death it became more spiritual. Life became more spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to talk about the method that you have, right? The Mentally Strong method you talked about. That developed much, much earlier, right? So
Yeah.
could you talk a little bit about that? kind
Yeah.
of how
And
that developed and maybe how it's changed a little, because I think
yeah.
it maybe has.
So it started, I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I've always been a big proponent of cognitive behavioral therapy. So the way that you think impacts your mood and your choices. And I would read, so I've always been like read self-development book, and I'm always like just trying to improve myself. And I noticed that all the self-development work is positive psychology, right? If you just think positive, positive things will happen. Well, if you were living my life, you could not do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter how positive I was thinking, these horrible things just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And so, although I do believe in positive psychology, it's true mental strength is way more complicated than that. And I knew that when I was in the midst of, Johnny had passed. His sisters, Christina and Kayla, were rebelling to every mother's worst nightmare. Reggie is seizing constantly, and I've got to try to organize my thoughts. What am I going to do with all of these things that I'm thinking? And I realized that the missing piece in cognitive behavioral therapy is organization. So this is what the mentally strong method is. It's like, how do you think about your problems? Then how do you organize them so that you can make choices? And those choices are not just positive psychology. So for, your negative thoughts, the negative things that you think about, your dialogue that you go to,
Mm-hmm.
We call it the default mode network, where we just go and we kind of talk negative. That is the choice, is to think positive, to work on those things, right? But if you think you can positive talk away your grief or your trauma or your spiritual conflict, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mentally strong method is about separating those things. And I notice in this, every one of your listeners has experienced traumatic grief. Losing a child is traumatic grief. It's not just grief. And we know in psychiatry that trauma must be released from the body. We need to process it and release it. But we're not going to release our child. We're just not.
Right.
So what are we doing? Oftentimes we're holding on to the trauma.
Yes.
Because we're not going to let go of the grief.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the ways that it has evolved. So it started with just like the overwhelm of raising the kids and all of these traumas happening, and knowing that I needed to organize it. And then when Reggie passed, like, I knew I had to share that, and I knew I had to begin teaching about how you grieve. Grief is a pain that we have to feel. And, in Western culture, we don't want to feel pain, right? We want to numb pain, but we can't. We have to feel this pain and own it. It changed us, and that's okay. Like, own the fact that we are a different person now than we were before we lost a child. And so I began talking about that in Reggie's death. But remember that Reggie's life was trauma, but his death was not trauma. His death was clearly his body couldn't take anymore. And I would be selfish to want him back, right?
Yeah.
So his death itself was not trauma. His life was more trauma. So after his death, I talked a lot about like how to grieve and how to feel the pain. And I talk about like controlled grief. You're in Andy's room, like you have a space where you can go and pull out their things and look at pictures and, and not try to avoid feeling the pain. Like, you actually make time for the pain. Otherwise, it's going to come up when you're triggered and, and all it's going to come when you're triggered anyway. But the more you do that controlled grief, the more you can control when you're triggered, in maybe not appropriate settings.
Yes, because you've done some practice, so to speak,
Right.
in that controlled setting.
Yeah.
And it's often, I have Gwen is a social worker and thanatologist that comes on the podcast about every 6 weeks, and we talk about a lot of things. And she always says again and again, and I can hear her voice saying it, you have to feel it to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot go through life as a grieving person and not truly feel the grief.
Yeah.
And healing it doesn't mean curing it, but healing it does mean, if you look at a scar on your body, it's healed, it's not gone. So it's just, that's what you're kind of saying again and again. You have to feel it. You have to. And I know it's horrible and you don't want to feel it. And that's what we want to do, especially in this society. You want to just kind of push it away, push it away, push it away. But you can't. You just can't.
Yeah. And what I learned about trauma from Miah's death, which you experienced, right? Like this was not supposed to happen. This is, he's here 1 minute, everything's fine, and then he's gone. The trauma, what we know about trauma is that if we talk about it and think about it on a regular basis, we actually are solidifying negative neural pathways. We're embedding that trauma in our body. And so what we have to do when we have traumatic grief is we have to separate, bring to consciousness, write it out if you need to, like, this is the trauma, this is the grief. And make sure that when we're thinking about the traumatic part of this. So for me, like, I found my daughter, I was doing CPR, calling 911, like this whole horribly traumatic couple hours. Like that is the trauma. And if I think about that, then I'm actually ruminating and I'm causing, my body to hold on to the trauma. So, you do exercises that release trauma. And there's professional ones like EMDR and brain spotting, but there's also things like yoga and sound bowls and exercise and prayer and meditation. But it's the intent, because what I don't want people to do is feel the pain of their trauma over and over and over again. I want you to feel the pain of the grief, right? Because you got to feel the pain of the grief. But if you feel the pain of the trauma over and over again, the same with the negative self-talk. This is why I talk about like putting them in these categories, because yes, you need to feel the pain of the grief and the loss. But if you're sitting there saying, I'm a bad mother, if I would have done this, if you just keep with that negative narrative, like the negative narrative needs to be changed, which may be a spiritual conflict, right? Like when you lose someone that close to you, you have to wrestle with what you believe happens after death. Like you have to. Yeah. And I work in like traditional mental health, and a lot of my patients are, oh, I don't believe in God. Okay, but you've got to wrestle with something. There is something we know, everyone knows in their heart that there's an eternal soul. Yeah. So figuring out what happens with that is an important part of grief, but it's different than the grief itself. It's more of a spiritual conflict. Because you can talk to many people who have strong faith belief systems and they are holding on to the truths, but it's not but the pain of the grief is there and the negative self-talk is there and they're holding on to the trauma too, right? So it's like learning how to separate those things, that the pain of the grief is forever. We talk about like a scar or a wound. Losing a child, I think, is more like losing a limb. Like you can lose a limb, and there's many people who have been in tragic accidents and they've lost a limb and they have found a way to function and thrive without that limb. But they're never going to be a person with all of those limbs, right? Like it's compensating, it's learning, but never stop talking about this. This is your therapy, right? You get to talk about Andy. You get to, allow people to continue the story of the purpose of their child. And sometimes there's a purpose in the death. And that sounds like, it's triggering because you're like, well, But if we're really thinking about eternal souls and that time and space is not what we think it is,
Mm-hmm.
they're just on vacation waiting for us to get there.
I know. Yeah. I just love your analogy. I mean, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's what so many people, non-grieving people, don't understand. That I can experience joy again, and I have experienced joy again, but I am not the same person that I was. And I am still, like you said, I think it's a beautiful analogy about missing a limb. Just part of me is just not there anymore. And I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
If they haven't had to live it.
Right. Yeah, there's all kinds of people that, try to tell stories that they understand. And I tell people, try not to get upset with people. They're just trying to connect, and they have no idea this kind of pain.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of grace to people. A lot. Yeah. I like your explanation of what you're doing with the mentally strong method, because I have to say, in general, like, I do not like it when people say to me, "You're so strong," or "Just be strong," or things like that. Talking about activating things, that it's kind of activating to me, because I feel like what that's saying in a way is, "You're so strong, you don't need me. You can do this on your own. You can handle all this. I couldn't do that. I am not nearly as strong as you. I wouldn't be able to do that." And I think that it really minimizes how much better we do in community when we're with other grieving people, and how we can help each other. So I do like that explanation, because it's more of an organization thing. It's not like, you're mentally strong, just be strong and you'll be able to get through this fine,
Well, that's the masculine teaching that we
right
that we often hear. And all the people that teach on mental strength, most of the people except me, are men, and they're really talking about compartmentalizing and grit and just pushing through, kind of like a soldier in war. And this is why all the soldiers come back and have PTSD when they try to reintegrate into life. They're fine on the battlefield because they are, hyper focused on a mission. But when they have to come back and relate to other people who are not, it just, it becomes chaos in their brain.
Well, I've talked to grieving dads on the podcast, and there are several that have come on and said, I didn't grieve for 8 years. I didn't grieve for 10 years. Because that's exactly what they did. They compartmentalized it, tried to stuff it away, and wouldn't talk about it, and thinking time heals all wounds. I just got to give this some time, and it's going to be fine. And we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about him or her. We're just going to shove it away, and it's just going to eventually go away. And each one of those dads who's been on the podcast, now, obviously, if you're coming on the podcast, you're sharing stories and you're not in that kind of space anymore. But they all came to realize, like, you can't do that. It doesn't go away. Time doesn't heal all wounds. It just festers there. It just sits there until you allow it, allow yourself to feel the pain and allow yourself, then you can start to kind of heal. But until you do that.
Well, and the whole time heals all wounds. I mean, I think everyone in our generation has heard that and probably said it to people. Sorry. Right. But if you think about it from a medical standpoint, what wounds heal all by themselves? Superficial ones, like little scratches and
scabs and bug bites, little things.
Real wounds need treatment. Real wounds, as deep as losing a child, needs debridement. And I don't know if you've ever worked in wound care, but there's all kinds of like vacuum machines and like debridement machines. Like there's this aggressive treatment that has to happen to heal a wound. Wounds do not heal themselves. They must be treated. And so when you're talking about mental health wounds, the first step is confronting. I wanted to call my documentary Confronting Grief, but all the marketing people said that was too negative. But that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, this is unbearable and I'm running straight into it.
Yes.
But many of us, it's unbearable. And so we turn away and we try to stuff and we, and the wound is going to get infected and it's going to grow and it's going to cause not just grief symptoms, mental health symptoms of depression, anxiety, and even physical symptoms. There's a lot of research out there that talks about the correlation between stress and physical symptoms, heart attacks, autoimmune diseases, like it will come out physically. This wound will cause, some other kind of manifestation if it's not dealt with.
Yeah. That's a beautiful analogy too. You are full of good analogies, but I really do. I mean, I've had to debride wounds all the time. You come in and kids have wounds and and as much as I hate to have to do it, you have to make them hurt.
Right.
And like, it doesn't feel good. Like they don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. I mean, I've heard that many times and I have to touch it. We had someone in the walk-in clinic just this week who had an abscess that needed to be drained. The screaming that was going through, and this was a kid. She was screaming, and it wasn't even being touched because she was so worried about what would happen. And in fact, I think it was barely touched, and it started to open up. But my point is that it's traumatic to have to go through that, but you can't just let the wound just fester and grow and get worse. Right. And we know as doctors that we don't listen to the 12-year-old who's saying, don't touch me, don't touch me. We have to. And we obviously make it as comfortable as possible. And as you're in the mental health field and you have to go through this trauma, you make it as easy as you can. I mean, I've gone through EMDR. We go to some things and then it gets too intense and we go to my safe place, right? I've got my safe place. I've got the car accident stuff. I've got different things that I work on with her, and we go back to the safe place, but then we go back into the pain, right? That's what you have to do. I mean, if I hadn't have done that, I don't know that I'd be able to drive a car today. I don't know that I would. I certainly wouldn't be able to drive past the accident site every single weekend as we go to our cottage up north. No way I could have done that. I mean, when I first started having to do that, I would have to pull off on the side of the road and vomit. Yeah. But I hated every single time my therapist did EMDR with me. I did. I dreaded it because I knew that it would be painful, but in the long run, so helpful.
Yeah. You had to confront it. How long did it take you till you felt like EMDR wasn't a horrible knife in your chest?
Long time, actually.
Yeah.
Because I did it for a while and then things got better. And then I told her I didn't need it anymore, which I really think was a lie because I really did. And so then we did it again. And I actually feel now like now I think I don't need it now, but it's been almost 7 years.
Yeah.
And it has come and gone, right? I went to therapy. I had a good, probably close to a year where I didn't go to therapy and I thought things were okay. And then things bubble back up again. And you just don't know when it's coming. You don't know when these bad days are going to happen and when I should really start seeing my therapist again. My biggest issue is she's going to retire in the next year or so. And then, then I'm out of luck. Yeah. I don't want to start fresh.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for the listeners to understand that at least 5 years, at least.
Yeah, because we're at 7 and I feel like it's just recently.
Yeah.
Like just recently. Yeah.
And this is what happened with me. Like 5 years after Reggie's death, I thought like I can breathe.
Yeah.
And, the problem is your doctor is going to say, if you're still grieving after a year, then you have prolonged grief disorder.
Prolonged grief disorder, blah, blah, blah.
Don't listen to any of them, right? Like Again, this is, you've lost a limb and you're trying to learn how to live without it. At least 5 years. And that's 5 years of active working either with a therapist or going on this journey and confronting. If you've been ignoring this for 5 to 7 years, you've got 5 years, at least 5 years of therapeutic intervention and confronting to feel like you understand. I know that's not the right words and healed is not the right word either, because again, the limb is gone, but giving yourself grace and confronting it. So wherever you are on your journey, if you have not been confronting it, that's the first step. The first step is saying, I'm going to confront this. I'm going to, if you don't feel like you can do it on your own, I'm going to find a therapist. I have programs, and just making that conscious decision of, I'm going to do this. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be 5 years of hard. You're not going to go to one EMDR session and be able to do the traumatic day. And this is, the deepest pain that a parent can feel. And, I know we don't like to say this, but for mothers, that there's an additional chemical bond. Like, so when I was going through like researching grief theories, which by the way, there's lots of better ones than the stupid 5 stages of grief. But there's one called attachment theory. And so attachment is obviously how much time and attachment you have to the person, right? So your child and parent-child relationships should be your closest relationship, right?
Yeah.
But then a mother's bond actually includes a chemical transfer. And so, we have chemical bond that happens, throughout pregnancy and in birth. And this is one of the things that I struggled with, because sometimes people judge me that the feeling of losing an adopted child was not, like I give more attention to, or I say there's more pain to losing Reggie and Miah. But there's an attachment. Like when I read this attachment theory, I let go of some of that guilt. Because Johnny had lived with us a year. Yes, I love Johnny. He wasn't my biological child, and he had only been with us a year. And so the attachment was not the same as losing Reggie, who was my biological child, who I just spent 10 years trying to save his life, and every ounce of my energy was going into trying to save his life, right? And it's not the same as Miah, who has always been, like there's the chemical attachment, but also had been by my side her whole life, like never moved away, always lived with me. And so the attachment theory that there is an additional bond between a biological mother and a child that kind of gave me, some permission to feel differently about the different deaths.
Well, and 2, you actually have Reggie and Miah's cells in your own body.
Right.
Because there is some exchange when you have a child in your womb. And I mean, that's a little comforting to me to think that there are some of Andy's cells still alive in me, right?
Yep.
And that's something that a dad doesn't have. And I'm sorry that a dad doesn't have that, but a dad doesn't have that.
Yeah.
There's just something different about having, had them in you.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
See, I told you I cry every time. I cry every time.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a neat thought to think about. And I think, too, with Johnny's death, you really went on, I've got to protect everybody else. I've got to help everybody else, especially Christina and Kayla, I think. I mean, I don't think you even allowed yourself to feel as much as you would have otherwise.
I didn't start grieving Johnny's death until after Miah's death.
Until after Miah's.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just really, like, I did love that kid.
Yeah.
And, but he had a purpose too. When we went to go adopt them, remember I told you we were only going to adopt one more.
Yeah.
And it was going to be a boy because my husband wanted to, him to play football.
Right. He's a football coach. He's going to raise a football team here, right?
Yes. And so the foster care system called us and they said, "Oh, we have a child. He could be yours," because my husband is Black. And so this This kid was dark skinned. And by the way, he has no place to sleep tonight. That should have been my red flag, but can you come get him? They didn't even tell us he had sisters. And we walk into the room and there he is with Christine and Kayla. And we're like, who's that? Well, those are his sisters. They've never been separated, which was a lie. They had been separated before, but they'd never been separated and they don't have a place to sleep tonight either. And so that was Johnny's purpose. Johnny's purpose was to get his sisters into our family because it wouldn't have happened any other way. We weren't going to adopt girls.
Yeah.
You know?
And they needed a lot of help and care,
Mm-hmm.
which you
Yeah.
do go into in the book. And we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
for a long time now and not brought up the book. So let's bring up the book. Let's talk about the book and how that kind of came to be.
Yeah. So I wrote it after Reggie's death and then updated it after Miah's. It's titled Pain and Purpose
Uh-huh.
because I'm determined to turn my pain into purpose and, continue to tell their story, but my story of strength, like how you actually find that strength. I think, and you were able to experience, the best way to experience it is through audio. It's on Audible.
Oh my word, yes. I just have to say, I she sent me the electronic copy, but she said it's also on Audible, and I decided to go for Audible because I told you we have a cottage up north, so it's 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, and I thought, this makes the most sense. I'm going to just listen to this book instead of reading it, and whoa, it's amazing on Audible so I'm just going to be a spoiler here. It's read, and then the narrator pauses very often to ask you questions. And honestly, that was like my favorite part of it was feeling a little more of the inside and her saying, how does that make you feel to hear that? And all of that. It's beautiful. So Audible all the way. Okay, go ahead.
But your listeners can get a free copy if they go to my website, mentallystrong.com. At the top, there's a free book link and we will send them an electronic copy. But I agree, the audiobook is different and it hits differently.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a great book. I really loved it, especially the end. I really loved the end. I thought you ended it beautifully. So you wrote it and then you kind of did it again, right?
Well, I added 3 chapters, right? Because when I wrote it the first time, I had Miah was not supposed to die, even though she had this rare disorder. She was going to be like her father and live into his 40s. And so there was to me, that was the end, like the Reggie's death. And now I've got this season of spending time with Miah. And so, so it was rewritten after Maya's death with those 3 chapters.
Well, and at the time, your husband was still alive, right? And so the book was released in 2022, and then you've got a documentary too. So let's talk about the documentary.
Yeah. So after, again, Maya's death was the most traumatic for me. This was not supposed to happen. It was about 8 or 9 months after her death that I realized I haven't even started grieving, and I'm a grief expert, right? I have not even started. I was still in shock 8 months later. I said, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do it publicly.
Okay.
I didn't really know what publicly meant, and I had no idea how hard it was to create a documentary. But at that time, I was just gonna film the whole thing, and then I was gonna find an editor or something like that. So in 2022 is when I did what I call the 45 days of grief, and I talk about this in the documentary. I'm not really always a numbers person, but 45 has been our family number. It's in every one of our passwords. It is my husband's football number.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was your husband's football number. That's when it probably started, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He had a gold chain that had 45 on it. So it was just, everybody knew that 45 was our number. And when I decided I was filming myself grieving, I was thinking, a couple weeks, go on a retreat or something like that. And I realized that there was exactly 45 days between the anniversary of Reggie's death and the anniversary of Maya's death.
Yeah.
And when I told my mom I was going to do 45 days of grief, she's like, that's too long. You can't do that. But I'll tell you, it was necessary.
Yeah.
There was a clear bell curve of like this horrible even to the point of thinking suicidal thoughts. And I have to stop and say, you can have those thoughts and them not be an action, and get help and tell somebody, right? Like, but there was this clear, like, that was the depth of how much pain there was. And then began the healing. And so 45 days was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
When I teach and I have a workbook on grieving with purpose, you can do it gently, over time, but it takes that time. And there is something to doing it every day for a long period of time, because you get to go a little deeper each day, right? When you do little chunks, it takes a while to get deeper and deeper, right? Because you have to start where you are, and then, but when you're doing it every day and you're going deeper and deeper, there was definitely something to that. But 45 days was a long time. Filmed the whole thing. And I did everything from just, personal meditations to going back to where I raised my children, going to their school, talking to people, going to where they did therapies, going to dolphin therapy, swam with the dolphins, lots of really cool things. But, when you think about a trigger, it's like purposely triggering yourself every day so that you can feel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to the accident site on purpose, right? When we would really want to avoid it. It's going there on purpose. And now you're able to drive by every time you go to your cottage, or do you take another route?
No, every time.
I'm proud of you, right? Like, and that is confronting the pain. And so I did that for 45 days, and then it took another year and a half to actually create a documentary out of it, because that's actually harder than I thought.
Well, it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful documentary.
Thank you.
And I tell people how they could see that documentary too.
So the best thing is to go to thementallystrong.com and click the link for the free book, because it gets you in my little emails, and then you'll get an invitation to watch the documentary, and you'll get into that.
I think that's what I did. Now that I'm thinking back, I think that's what I did. And it's really beautiful. And I do want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your children. And again, just tell people how to see you, how to find you on your website.
Mentallystrong.com, just like it sounds. And all the information's there. Click around. It'll take you to my YouTube channel. I have lots of free content. I've been doing YouTube for 6 years. So from losing Reggie, I started about a year after losing Reggie. So you get to see just the real vulnerable journey throughout.
Well, thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation. Or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.